Okay, hey, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have a really cool review for you guys from the brand RZE. A little about them. They're a newer micro brand upstart where the founder was actually a key designer from another popular micro and has now set out to really create his own vision from the ground up. And within that vision, of course, is the genre of the everyday adventure watch. Some key characteristics and language you're looking for something within that space. Of course, you're going to want something that is sporty, legible, and tough. This is their Resolute Pro with the white enamel dial. And this is pretty much the most refined iteration of their titanium field watch that really started it all. Crafted from ultra durable, ultra lightweight titanium, it's beautifully brushed and coated with their proprietary ultra hex hard coating. It is also one of their newer models that features the upgraded bracelet with on-the-fly micro adjustment within that awesome clasp. And it's also does have that beautifully ultra refined enamel dial with an applied logo versus the previous iterations that had printed logos. You can get this for $6.59 direct, or you can take $20 off and go with the eco-friendly no pouch option. This is really just a beautifully proportioned and designed watch that yes, I have previewed previously. I was actually a pre-production prototype. And this is my own personal unit that I purchased after reviewing the prototype. I was like so impressed with it that I had to try out the real thing. And I am on a real kind of white dial kick as of late. So really happy to kind of share my personal experiences with you all. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, so first off into the dimensions. This is a 40 millimeter diameter watch, but that is including the crown guards. So if you go crown guards and then of course this little step out, which actually does keep a certain level of symmetry with the case, as you guys can see there with the shape, that's 40 millimeters. Otherwise, it's actually 39.5 if you were to measure from like 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock. So if you weren't counting kind of the kickouts that are there. So that's definitely something interesting. So I know some people are going to think, okay, 40 millimeter watch is kind of on the bigger side for the type of watch that this is without a rotating, dive time bezel or anything like that, or even, compass bezel or anything. But I will say it proportionally is actually very, very nice. And I think well suited for a various amount of different wrists. Now, one thing also to note is that thinness. It's only 10.5 millimeters thick, which is awesome. Only 46 millimeters lug to lug. Again, another kind of sweet spot in terms of proportions. And then it does have that nice brushed finish on the titanium, and it does have the ultra hex coating, which is going to be up to 1200 hardness Vickers. So that's going to be about 1,000 Vickers stronger than your typical stainless steel. And I have to say, this has held up really well. I've taken this on quite a few adventures. I do live in Southern California, so I'm very fortunate to have a wide array of different types of terrains and trails I've been able to take this on, whether they be more coastal or up into some real heavy trails with some nice kind of hillside and more mountainous terrain as well. And this has really been wonderful. I'll try to insert a picture or two from some of my travels with this watch thus far, but I will say when it comes to being that kind of grab and go watch where you're getting ultimate legibility, also a great durability, and of course a style that I think fits within that aesthetic, when I'm throwing on a nice breathable, wickable shirt from Columbia or something like that. I think they really do hit the mark with their aesthetic and with their design. Now, the crystal on here is a really nice sapphire, which of course you're not really seeing because it's very, very clear and nice. It's flat, so you don't have to worry about any types of different milky rings or anything like that you might get, if it were domed. And also it has a great inner AR coating, which does a great job, of course, negotiating those different types of direct reflections. So you're going to be able to really enjoy the beautiful reflective, enamel dial. I say reflective, I mean, it's just glossy in finish, as you guys can see. So you're also getting a screw down crown, which is nicely signed. And look at that. It actually like screws down and lines up, which is rare. And I don't know, maybe I'm just lucky with mine, but I just think that that's cool because there's so many times you do a screw down crown and honestly it doesn't line up. So very cool. So they get bonus points for that. Now inside is going to be a Miyota 90S5, and you can't see it thanks to that nice solid case back, which is nicely etched. But that beat does have a nice bit of specs on it, right? It's nicely thin. Also, it does have a 42-hour power reserve and beats at a full 4 hertz sweeps, which is going to be 28,800 vibrations per hour in terms of that beat rate. So you're going to be able to expect a nice smooth sweep again. Getting into the dial, really nice glossy enamel dial. You're getting beautifully applied indices. You're getting that great contrast because it's black on white there in terms of those surrounds, and of course the hand different accents there. No date, so very, very legible, very, very balanced, and of course a nice level of symmetry. Again, the symmetry of the case, symmetry of the dial. It's just, again, it speaks to the overall balance of this piece, and I really like that it has an aesthetic that is recognizable as a nice, you know, rugged, adventure-ready piece, but it doesn't necessarily look like anything else out on the market. So I think that's awesome because there's so many brands that, although they're paying homage, can just be very, very derivative in, in comparison to others. And I think, of course, the market is really taking a turn more towards more contemporary designs and modern watches. I think we've kind of had our fill. At least the enthusiast market has had their fill of, vintage-inspired pieces. So it is, of course, nice if you have the heritage to call back upon it, but for a new brand to create a new aesthetic, I think is also really cool and very, very important for, future scale. Now, getting into this, actually, one thing to also notice is that this has really good lume. So Swiss Superluminova, it glows blue with green accents. You can probably tell some of the spots that might have a green accent just by looking at it, but I'd say in daylight, it all blends really well and feels really balanced. It also has 100 meters of water resistance, thanks to that screw down crown, and of course some great uses of Viton gaskets, so 10 atmospheres with that screw down, great. Solid H-link bracelet here, 20 millimeter lugs, they are drilled, and you also do get quick release spring bars, so you don't necessarily have to use tools, but if you did, the nice thing is you could swap this off, and then you still, even without the quick release spring bars, if you took it off the bracelet, you'd still be able to swap things out nicely thanks to those drilled lugs, which I think also look great and also, really key in and capitalize on the tool-like aesthetic here. You have nice solid H-links here, screw-in connecting pins, really nicely milled, all the way around. Everything is very solid. Here's the bracelet, very nice. And then you also even do get a little message here of, if I can get it to focus, being assembled for adventure, very cool. And then on the underside, of course, you're going to have that toolless micro adjustment, which is fantastic, even fully extended. The nice thing is you don't see any type of extender in there. It all flows very nice. And of course, what I like to do is size the bracelet with it at its tightest. So then if my wrist was to swell, then I can, of course, add a little relief, which honestly comes in a lot of handy. And I definitely have used out on the trails, because my wrist can swell. So with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, I think this wears really, really well. Check out the flatness, the thinness, the angles on here that are playing with the light. Although this is a fully satin brushed finish on this case, it still gets a nice amount of light play because of those angles there, which I think are finished really nicely, and they are quite sharp to the eye, but not necessarily sharp to the touch, which is fantastic in terms of being comfortable to wear. Of course, if I do get my wrist a bit too close to the lens, you're going to get some perspective distortion, and it's not even focusing there. There we go. You're going to get a bit of perspective distortion, and it's going to appear much larger than it actually is. Look at that. For some reason, the dial just feels huge. But if I rest my wrist nice and low and then tighten up the frame here, you guys will be able to still get a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio. Look how much better that appears now to sit on my wrist. So definitely don't be detoured when you see different types of shots, you know, whether they be in videos or on, you know, on Instagram or anything like that, because of course watches typically are going to look larger than they actually appear, especially when you think about the fact that there's typically the context of a full human form that it's going to be attached to versus just a floating wrist. Now check that out, guys. I'm really digging this. Look at the finishing there. Again, this is meant to be a tool watch, so nothing luxurious or, you know, extremely complex in terms of that finishing, but it is executed to a high level. Look at the edges, nice and crisp. So very, very cool, especially for a watch, again, well underneath $1,000, guys. And I mean, definitely check for current pricing and availability as well. But this thing just wears really well, and I'm having a good time with it personally. And I do enjoy wearing it thoroughly. And I have a lot of watches that absolutely do kind of compete within this space, whether they be white dials, whether they be kind of adventure ready types of watches. But there's just something about this combination in titanium with the hard coating, with that really signature aesthetic that I'm really, really enjoying. So with that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Bam, check it out. Now that is lume. And as you know, for a field watch, it doesn't necessarily need that lume. And you know, for a field watch, you don't necessarily even need 100 meters of water resistance with a fully screw down crown. But you get it. And I tell you what, it's what helps elevate this outside of a typical field watch and really take it into that more flexible kind of adventure ready space, because it can absolutely hold up within any types of water sports activities. You know, even if you were going to snorkel or anything like that, the nice thing is you're going to have that ultimate legibility even in, you know, lower level lighting conditions. One thing I always like to work in is a bit, of course, of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you can find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. To maybe include a bit of harsh lighting, which typically could expose any types of production defects. But all you're going to notice here is underneath the 4K, you might see, you know, I don't know, maybe some micro scratches. I'm not seeing them, or a little bit of dust that I missed. But I mean, this thing is gorgeous, and again, it's held up really beautifully. You know, again, within that everyday adventure space. Honestly, one of the cool things about this watch is that it inspires me to get out of the house and go put it through its paces. It's kind of like a dive watch can inspire you to, you know, go get in the water, right? And don't just lay on the beach in the sand, you know, go ahead and enjoy some of that water resistance here with that hard coating, with that light layout. It just, yeah, it's nice. It gets me off of the couch and onto the trail. And I have to say, this is just a fun piece. I'm really, really digging it. And I'm hoping that this thing catches on, for not just because the owner of the company is very cool and nice, but because it's a cool brand and I like what they're doing and I want to see them continue to do great things. I mean, every brand has to start somewhere. I know some people have different opinions on micro brands and upstarts and, you know, really wanting to make sure that they're paying for heritage. But guys, again, it all has to start somewhere. And I think they've been off to a really great start when it comes to RZE. So closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, perfect Goldilocks sizing, super lightweight without feeling insubstantial or cheap. Again, I've definitely had some titanium watches that almost felt wooden. That's not the case here. So in terms of model variants, definitely check the site for current options and availability, as I'm sure they're always expanding depending on when you watch this video. I know there's also a beautiful black dial option as well, and I'm sure other and also their signature kind of signal yellow, which is a really cool kind of school bus orangey tone, which is awesome. In terms of comparable models, there are a ton of other titanium field watches that you could get on bracelets. I've reviewed some of them, and I've even had little cross comparisons. I'll try to leave a link down at the end of the video. But you think about something like, let's say, the BOLDR Venture on bracelet for around $440. You're getting 200 meters of water resistance. but it is cheaper, which is nice. You know, but you also don't have the hard coating, and you're getting that lower beat Seiko NH35. You could say get something like the Momentum Atlas for around $535. Still slightly cheaper, but it won't have the hard coating, but it'll also still have that nice higher beat Miyota movement, or something like, let's say, the very class leading SWC Bunker for around $645, which you will get a hardened coating and a Sellita SW200 in a Swiss made package with class leading lume. But you'll get a larger footprint, and as well as a 22 millimeter lug width. So there's those options. Of course, there's going to be some mainstream players like Hamilton, but those are going to be a lot more expensive and honestly lower value in terms of the spec sheet. Of course, for heritage wise, absolutely, those are great options. And if you're a big fan of Hamilton or Swatch Group products, you know, those are going to be pretty easy choices. But when it comes to kind of something, I think, that brings something new to the table, this really does sit pretty well. I think whether it be its pricing or its options that are available, this thing's really, really cool. So for bottom line, guys, this is an absolute favorite of mine in terms of that modern, go anywhere, do anything, that kind of GADA watch space, even in today's super hyper competitive landscape, right? Like, and I've tried a lot and I've enjoyed a whole lot of those watches. This one still stands out, and I think it makes a great case. Of course, I'm somebody who's not going to be able to say, well, this versus that, which one would I choose them all, because I own so many of them. So clearly, I'm probably not the best to tell you which is better out of whatever, but I do like this one a whole heck of a lot, and I can absolutely understand why people would want to choose something like this, if not this model, you know, when you look at it against today's landscape. So with that said, if you like the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. And don't forget to let me know what you all think down in the comments below. You guys own any RZEs? What are your experiences with them? Feel free to share. Are there any other comparables you think I might have missed that I should take a look at? And yeah, thanks, guys.